Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are recording live from GitHub Universe 2025, and today we're going to talk about something that affects every single person who's listening right now, supply chain security. Remember Log4j? That moment when everyone realized that critical infrastructure might not be as secure, and it's open source, maintained by volunteers who are not paid to fix all these issues, and they're doing an amazing job. I feel like that was a bit of a wake-up call to the industry, wouldn't you say, Kevin?
Yes, definitely. It was a big wake-up call for everyone, and it was mainstream, too. It wasn't just the developers.
100% affects everyone. So today we're here. I'm talking with Kevin Crosby, Senior Director of Open Source Funding at GitHub, about the GitHub Secure Open Source Fund, a GitHub initiative. And we're going to talk a bit about the real numbers and impacts. To date, you have supported over 200 maintainers now, over 1,100 vulnerabilities. That might be a bigger number, actually.
It's definitely a bigger number now. That was after only sessions 1 and 2, and we've now had a longer period between and another cohort that we've brought in.
Amazing. So the funding that GitHub is putting towards this project is going directly to help maintainers fix those security issues before they become the next major headline.
The fund is actually not even a year old. We pre-announced it a year ago, and the idea came through the GitHub Accelerator. We had an early project come in that had 1 to 2 maintainers, and really what they were looking at is building a strong community, but they didn't really have a great awareness and education around security. So we tested this hypothesis: if we could provide funding, training, education, and expertise, could we actually drive improvements in security, but also sustainability in the project? And through that whole cohort, we actually had very strong success. It was about 80% increase in the core best practices of security.
Wow.
And that really catalyzed this moment of how do we double down on this? How do we help improve security, not just for these projects, but everyone that depends on them? And how do we programmatically do that so that we can do it at scale? So not just a handful of projects, but really thinking about hundreds, if not thousands of projects over time. And then the second piece of that is, it's not just GitHub doing this. This is a shared responsibility aspect and shared resources from all the other folks that depend on it. So we thought about, can we connect the ecosystem of funders and other ecosystem partners that rely and help cultivate the open source ecosystem to come together and build this funding model? And so that's what we pre-announced a little over a year ago. And it's been great. We've done 3 sessions now, 130 plus projects, 219 maintainers, global reach, billions of monthly downloads from each of these, from all of the projects in the cohort. And like you said, we've had over 1,100 Dependabot vulnerabilities detected and fixed.
Wow.
And that just keeps growing. And the best part about it, it's not just the projects doing this, but anyone that picks up a new release of these projects have now more secure software that everyone benefits from. Very excited about it.
That is amazing. For the projects that became a part of the fund, and when they started digging into the code bases, were they surprised at the need that they had? Did most of them, were they aware? Was this something that they weren't expecting it, or did they just not have the time to purpose it for this sort of emphasis on security?
That's a great question. I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a little bit of awareness and a little bit of preparedness. Most developers that I think we run into are not security experts, so they actually don't know what they don't know.
Yes.
So that's the awareness of what does it really mean to be secure? What things should we be looking for in the GitHub platform? How do we actually embed secure practices in our project? And then the awareness of that allows them to be prepared. So how do we set up things like incident response planning, having a security MD file in there and a policy around it? How do we set up the right governance in our community so that they can be proactive and it's not about the firefights of something happening? And so we've really cultivated the program of solving awareness and preparedness for the maintainers that come into the program itself.
That is amazing. I love that approach. Let's talk a bit about, logistically speaking, how this funding model works. So it was $10,000, right, per project for 12 months, and it was delivered to them in sprints. How do you land on that structure? And obviously it's been very successful, so the sprint format works, but I'd love to know your thoughts behind that idea.
Yeah, it was actually a very unique approach to it. I think one of the ideas that we came up with was how do we align the funding to give developers time to actually focus on security?
Yes.
And give them incentives to keep doing it over a period of time so that it embeds it into the culture of the projects. And so that way it's not a one and done fund and then hope for the best. It's actually aligning the incentives across the ecosystem. And we right-size the amount of funding per sprint based off of the amount of time that they're spending on the program. So the first tranche is $6,000 for a 3-week sprint, and it's really about the fundamentals of open source security, identifying vulnerabilities, and then also looking at frontier things like what is happening with AI and MCP security that they have to focus on. And so 3-week, really intense bootcamp sprint. And then we do a 6-month check-in to make sure that they're continuing on with those practices. That's a $2,000 stipend for that 6 months check-in. And then they get another $2,000 at the 12-month check-in for the same kind of purpose, where we're able to then verify what are you doing, what are you learning, how are you actually implementing security, answer any questions that they may have, and then also help them share with the broader ecosystem. So they do this in front of all the other maintainers in their cohort, and so everyone learns from the benefit of it. I've turned this into this concept of a security success stand-up. So it's a 15-minute kind of check-in.
Wow.
And they love it. It's a really good opportunity to learn from each other. And yeah, we've been really impressed with the results. We actually just had our first 6-month check-in a couple weeks ago, and just seeing the transformation of developers that were like, I didn't know this existed, or I didn't know I needed to do this, to, oh, we're shipping MFA, we're like blocking keys from being leaked, we're adding protected branches, things like that, where you just didn't see that before. And so it's been really cool to see that be not just the first 3 weeks, but a 6-month check-in that they're still maintaining that.
You're changing the culture of security within these projects. This is amazing. How were those projects selected? Or did you apply? How was that?
Yeah, you touched on the question earlier, which is like, how do partners and companies get involved with that?
Yes.
They're one of our biggest funders as part of the program. They bring in capital to help provide to the open source projects, but through that they get to recommend the projects to the program, which means that they get to help choose which ones they depend on. And generally, if you think about it too, it's not just them depending on, it's everyone else as well. So there's an interesting ecosystem. So we take in referrals from funders, we take in referrals from our ecosystem partners based off of projects that could potentially benefit from the security training and expertise, but also could benefit from the ecosystem. And then the third kind of pile or pool that we have are general applications from developers who are like, oh, I really think I could benefit from a community. I really want the security education, and that funding would really help me as a maintainer sustain the project, cascade the trainings to the community, or help me build a better security posture across my projects. And so we bring all of that pool of projects and go through a rigorous process of reviewing the projects, identifying their needs, making sure there's a mix of large projects with very systemic impact, but also some emerging ones that are becoming critical to the AI stack, for example. And then also looking at like, how many maintainers do they have? Is it a small team that could really benefit from this ecosystem approach? And so we mash all of that together, figure out the right cohort dynamics, and bring them into this batch of developers focused on security.
That is amazing. Thank you for sharing the criteria. I'm going to ask you later how can projects, of course, apply and what's coming up next. But before we do that, you just touched on a critical point about the smaller projects that maybe are not as well known, but are becoming so impactful. I'm sure a lot of MCP and AI-related projects are a part of that. Speaking of AI, now obviously maintainers are using AI to find vulnerabilities, to fix them, or both. And at GitHub, we're working on a lot of native solutions to the platform to enable them to do that long term. How is the maintainer's experience for that? I feel like historically, maintainers are very suspicious of AI tools. So the thought of embracing them for the purpose of enabling a better security posture is very novel to me. Anecdotally, I can't say that. If you don't mind sharing some of their opinions, what did you feel on the ground from the cohort when it came to that?
That's a great question. I definitely feel not just a reticence of like AI, but I think net new tools are sometimes hard for folks to pick up and run with.
Absolutely.
One of the things we really focus on is not just give them the tool, but show how it actually benefits them on a day-to-day. And so if you lead with value, they actually will pick it up and say, oh, this is interesting. So we brought in modules of things like dependency scanning. And so going through your full dependency tree and saying, where do you see vulnerabilities? And you can use Copilot to go through that and edit and audit and see where those gaps are and run an assessment on your own dependencies to say, oh, these are risky, I should fix that. Or maybe there's stale packages that could benefit from an upgrade. So we use that as one framework too. We brought in some of the Autofix opportunities as well from Copilot to say, okay, if you see a security vulnerability, how do you assign it to Copilot and actually fix those remediations? One of my favorite ones, actually, we had a project come in and had never heard about fuzzing. And it was really cool because he learned about it and he's, I wonder if I could use Copilot to build my fuzzing modules for this. And so he went to Copilot chat, built out an entire plan, put it into agent mode. He actually developed his full fuzzing methodology in his project.
That is amazing.
And this is like going from 0 to 1 in a matter of weeks. And what kind of came to me was this can not only improve security, but it does it faster because a lot of the items may sit on a backlog for a long period of time, but now that you have these AI-powered tools, the burn down comes faster, and they can teach themselves, like, what is a good security posture? And not only what is it, but how do I apply it to my projects? Overall, I think knowledge increased, capability increased, like they got hands-on with the experience, and trust increased because they knew how to manipulate the tools in a way that it made sense for their projects while still getting the outcomes of better security.
I appreciate that. So it's okay to be suspicious, but also to be curious and actually see what they can do for you. And
Totally.
having this cohort system, I love it because you can encourage that knowledge sharing and this one-to-many. Now they're sharing their experience to other maintainers, and hopefully more people are thinking about security.
Absolutely.
So looking ahead, what does success look for this program? What's next for the program?
Yeah, more projects and continue to grow more funding. I think our goal is how do we scale up to hit more projects into the program? I was talking to an ecosystem partner, and they asked me a fairly audacious question, but it's how do we go from 130 projects to 13,000 to 15,000 projects and really think about the mechanisms to scale? And so a lot of what we're thinking about now is how do you drive scale, ensure that the developers have the same network kind of cohort model, and ensure that the funders are equally benefiting from this ROI and of the investment into security. We're looking at that for our next steps. Right now, we are currently fundraising to bring in more partners into the fund, and we'll kick off the next session, which will be session 4 early in 2026. I'm anticipating a similar kind of focus in terms of the size of projects that we bring in and the mix of authors and maintainers that come into it as well, and we'll keep going from there. So I'm super excited about it. I hope the maintainers also, like, over time, continue to share their stories. Like, they've amplified it a ton, and I really love hearing like their success stories. And so actually I didn't share this, but one of the other big referral sources of projects is the maintainers themselves. So like, we depend on this.
Yes.
It's super cool, and so they'll do that as well. And so I'm looking forward to, we have more 6-month check-ins, we have 12-month check-ins, and then we have these, like, this community that'll continue to grow. And I'm really looking forward to helping shape that and figure out how do we scale that community? What does that look like if you end up with not just 200 maintainers? So if you're at 15,000 projects, how do you have millions of maintainers that are all security ambassadors, really talking about, like, how do I do this not just for my project, but everyone else's? How do I help you improve your security? If you're a solo maintainer, how do I help you fix your security gaps as well? So looking forward to that as well.
That's amazing. Okay, so are you looking for more partners?
Always, both in terms of like funders and ecosystem partners. And ecosystem partners bring not just they'll bring resources, training, expertise, skill sets, but also funders. And funders are important because they're the ones that are helping to drive the shared pooled resources and responsibility of this. But together is how we actually bring this together. So definitely looking for more funding. And then the benefit of that is they're able to engage with the maintainers, they're able to help improve their security posture, and more importantly, they actually have this shared benefit across the ecosystem. So there's a lot of greater impact that they have by participating in as a funder as well.
That sounds like a net win for any organization that's thinking of becoming a partner of this great project. So how can they do that? Reach out to you?
Yeah, they can reach out to me. There's also our website where we can fill out a form and kind of become a partner that way. But yeah, it's a fairly easy process. And the best part about it too is it's all run through GitHub sponsors, which makes it super easy for an organization to put the funding into the GitHub Secure Open Source Fund, and then we manage all the logistics, which means like we do the payments, we do the selection, we do the curriculum. So from an organization, it's actually really lightweight, and they get all the security benefits of the improvements over the program.
That's amazing. Remind us of the website.
Yeah, it's resources.github.com/GitHub Secure Open Source Fund. So
that is fantastic. Thank you so much, Kevin. This is great work. You're turning this open source security from firefighting into a super funded proactive maintenance practice, and I love that. That's what the ecosystem needs. That's terrific. We have the website. Where can people get a hold of you?
They can email me. It's Kevin Crosby at github.com, or LinkedIn is always my favorite. I'm on there more than I should be.
Aren't we all? This is fantastic. Thank you so much, Kevin, for sharing the fun here with us today. And if you're listening to this and you're an open source project or a potential partner for the program, be sure to reach out to Kevin. Thank you.
Thanks all. Appreciate it.